Today, I have a gluten-free recipe for you. We're gonna make gluten-free cornbread because even if you don't eat gluten because of an allergy or just because you don't like it or you wanna cut back, you should still get to enjoy amazing cornbread. And today, I'm gonna show you how. Now, before we get started, remember you can grab the full recipe in the link description. And we've learned that 90% of you guys aren't even subscribers. So if you're watching right now, make sure you like and subscribe. We here on Eating on a Dime are trying to help families eat well on a budget. And we believe that every family can make delicious food at home. So like and subscribe so you don't miss any more of our videos. First things first, we are going to preheat the oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. A lot of recipes that I have seen have just included a one-to-one gluten-free flour, which is great. I've done that with my traditional cornbread recipe. However, sometimes it's not sometimes. All the time, it's really expensive. So we're showing you how to make a gluten-free cornbread without the one-to-one flour. So it's really important, but it's also a lot more cost effective. So we're going to start off with just cornmeal. We have 1 1/4 cup of cornmeal, just like you would in your traditional cornbread recipe. Then we're going to throw in 3/4 cup of almond flour. So just regular almond flour. And then what makes this have that same texture that you're going to get with a regular a regular cornbread, can't talk, is tapioca flour. Sometimes it's called tapioca starch or tapioca flour, but we're going to do a 1/4 cup of that. It's important to have that. And if you're making a lot of gluten-free recipes, you will see that tapioca starch or flour is commonly used. So you're going to use it right up. Then you're going to need a tablespoon of baking powder and then a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda and then a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Then we're going to whisk all these dry ingredients together. Now, when you're doing this, you might notice the almond flour might be kind of clumpy, or same with that tapioca starch. Just keep whisking it. That's why I'm using a whisk. So that way you're making your own kind of like a flour blend and getting everything together. Then we're going to set this aside. Then we're going to need a 1/4 cup of butter melted. So I'm just going to pop this in the bowl and then give it a quick zap in the microwave for about 30 seconds and let that get nice and melted. The butter is melted. Now, normally you would just crack your eggs in first so you could whisk them up, but I don't like to do that because since that butter is pretty warm, we don't want to risk scrambling the eggs. So we're going to add some other cold ingredients first. So then we have 1 cup of buttermilk. If you don't have buttermilk, you can also just substitute it with regular milk. I've done that before and it'll still be delicious. But for the best tasting gluten-free cornbread, try the buttermilk. Then we're going to add 2 tablespoons of oil. I did olive oil, a 1/4 cup of honey, and a little tip when you're measuring honey, if you spray it with nonstick spray first, the honey comes right out before, like when you're measuring. If you do not like sweet cornbread, because I know some of you guys are going to drop in the comments and say cornbread isn't supposed to be sweet. Here in Oklahoma, it's supposed to be sweet. But I understand if you don't want that, cut this down to 2 tablespoons of honey instead of the 1/4 cup. You still need a little bit of sugar in your cornbread, even if you don't want it sweet. It's just because it needs to balance it out. You could also do sugar instead of honey if you want to, but just decrease it to that 2 tablespoons. And then we've got 2 eggs. And we're already almost done. Then we're just going to whisk this together. I always start by poking the eggs and then slowly whisking with a side-to-side motion just to get those eggs incorporated. And then you can go to a bigger whisk. All that's left is we're going to combine the wet and the dry ingredients. Now, I am super lazy. You guys know that if you've been following me for a while. I hate separating wet and dry ingredients. I'm like, just dump it in the same pan. But with this gluten-free one, I highly recommend it because of the clumps. We want to get everything together. So while I hate having to dirty up 2 bowls, it is preferred for this, for this recipe. And you guys know I've got your back. I'm not going to make you dirty up more dishes unless you need to. Now I switched to a spatula from the whisk. because cornbread I feel like just mixed together better with a spatula, but you could do a whisk too. I just feel like it's kind of thicker, but we're just going to get this nice and incorporated. Then you need a pan, okay? You're going to use an 8x8 pan or a 9x9 pan. 8x8 is going to take a little bit longer to cook, and you're going to have thicker. 9x9 will be faster to cook, but it's going to be thinner. So you decide. I personally prefer a metal pan or a cast iron skillet when making cornbread. A glass pan works great too. I have done that many a times, but I love a metal pan. It gives you those crispy edges on your cornbread. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm an edge girl. With brownies, cornbread, I want those crispy edges. So if it's not crispy, I don't want it. Now, we do have instructions on doing inside a cast iron pan as well. So check that out. Remember the recipe, all of it, nutritional information, everything is linked in the description. So we're just going to throw this in there. I did spray it. I don't think I said that, but I sprayed it with some olive oil spray, or actually it's avocado oil spray, but I just get that at Costco. It's very inexpensive. Another thing that you can do, which is fun, is you can actually put the pan, if you really like crispy edges, is you put the pan in, like with a nonstick spray, you spray it and you put it in the pan in the oven. While the oven is coming to temperature, it heats up your pan. You have to be careful, but then you put the cornbread into the hot pan and then bake it, and you'll have even extra crispy edges as well. So that's another great option. Now make sure you give your pan a little tap, tap, tap. So that way your cornbread isn't super high right in the middle. We're going to go pop this in the oven. Remember, it's 375, and we're going to cook it for about 20-ish minutes until we check the center and the toothpick is clean. I will see you in a few. It's ready. Look, it's beautifully golden brown, and you can test it with a toothpick. If the toothpick comes out clean, it's ready. Now, the trick to cornbread is don't serve it immediately. We're going to let it sit for about 10 minutes to cool off, and then it'll be ready to cut and serve. It's been a few minutes, and I'm ready because it smells amazing. Now, this serves 9, so we're going to cut this into 9 pieces. I'm just going to cut it into thirds. And I'm just using a regular knife. I feel that that works best. You know, nothing fancy. See how it just cuts right through? And then I'm going to cut it in thirds the other way. It doesn't have to be exact, even though my brain says it should be. Then are just a little dessert server so you can pop it right out. If I could do this, this is the hardest part, right? Getting that one out. Look at that. It just beautifully came out. It's not stuck to the pan. Ooh, and it's still nice and warm and ready to eat. Now I'm going to serve it with some butter. I don't know. It's kind of messy because #kids, but isn't this the cutest little butter dish? Excuse the mess, but you know, we eat here. So I got this on Amazon, and I just think it's so fancy. We have to have room temperature butter. Let me know below if you do in your family too. Okay, just slather it with some beautiful butter on top. Oh, it's melting beautifully. Then it's time for my favorite part, which is eating it. That's it. See how easy it was, guys? Okay, remember you can grab the full recipe linked in the description. Once you make this, I would love, love, love it if you would head to the recipe and leave us a review. That's the #1 way to communicate with us, and we love hearing from you. You just drop a comment. You can leave up to a 5-star review, which we love 5 stars, and that way we can hear from you. Now, before we go, like and subscribe. I mean, come on, if you're not a subscriber, you're missing out on more fun recipes, especially now that we're going to be eventually getting into cooler temperatures, which means even more fun in the kitchen. Okay, I'm out of here, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. And a fly came in, and I will see you next time in my kitchen. But in the meantime, don't forget to eat at home by eating on a dime. Bye, friends.